The 12-day war between Iran, Israel, and the United States may be over, but the global power struggle it revealed is just beginning. As the missiles stopped falling, another shift was already underway. One far from the battlefield, a silent alignment is taking form. Iran, once isolated and under pressure, is now stepping into a new role. Not alone, there's no formal pact, no treaty like NATO. But there is a growing axis of influence, one that's redefining power not through war, but through coordination, shared interests, and a rejection of Western control. Together, they've conducted joint naval drills, exchanged intelligence, and deepened energy ties. Moscow has even helped Iran bypass sanctions through alternative banking systems and resource deals. Iran and China signed a 25-year strategic cooperation agreement that covers infrastructure, oil exports, technology transfer, and integration into China's Belt and Road Initiative. As the war escalated, China urged calm, not by siding with the West, but by advocating for a return to negotiations, quietly reaffirming Iran's regional importance. They all oppose the US-led order. They all resent economic coercion. And they all seek to expand their regional and global roles without submitting to Western conditions. When the US pushes for sanctions or resolutions, Iran now has two Security Council powers who can veto or block Western pressure. It's no longer fully dependent on Europe or the dollar-based system. It has roots both financial and logistical that bypass the old gatekeepers. During the war with Israel and the US, Russia didn't just stay silent. It actively defended Iran's right to retaliate and framed US intervention as a threat to global stability. Iran isn't begging for relief. It's negotiating from a place of endurance. Tehran is asserting its independence through alignment, not submission. It chooses its battles, protects its sovereignty, and builds relationships on its own terms. In return, Iran offers China access to key transit corridors and energy reserves, along with a shared goal, reducing US dominance in global affairs. But alongside two global powers, Russia and China. Initially based on necessity, it's now becoming a calculated strategic partnership. And with Russia and China amplifying its voice, Iran has shifted from defiant outlier to influential actor. But together, their cooperation is real and growing. One that trades in cooperation instead of coercion, in strategic patience instead of public declarations. It began with Iran supplying drones to Russia during the war in Ukraine, but has since evolved into broader military, economic, and diplomatic cooperation. What's forming isn't a military alliance in the traditional sense. It endured a direct clash with the US and Israel, kept its key defenses intact, and demonstrated missile reach without provoking total war. And when it retaliated, it did so with calculated restraint. Enough to send a message, not enough to escalate. It's about who controls the next negotiation and who stands behind them when they do. Iran's relationship with Russia has been transforming for years. Russia, heavily sanctioned and isolated by the West, saw Iran not just as an ally, but as a fellow survivor of Western pressure. Then there's China. While Beijing prefers subtlety over spectacle, its influence may be even greater. China continued importing Iranian oil through discreet channels, maintained financial and diplomatic links, and made it clear that Iran, even under sanctions, is a part of its long-term vision, and history is written by those who see beyond the battlefield. Together, Iran, Russia, and China now represent a powerful triangle, not bound by ideology, but by common cause. For Iran, this alignment offers three major advantages. First, protection. Not military defense, but political cover. Second, survival. Through oil exports to China and trade with Russia, Iran has alternative lifelines. And third, leverage. In nuclear talks or regional diplomacy, Iran is no longer isolated. It's walking into negotiations with global backing that changes the balance. This triangle doesn't mean Iran has become a puppet of Moscow or Beijing. Far from it. Of course, this axis isn't perfect. Russia is consumed by war in Ukraine. China avoids military confrontation, and Iran's economy still faces internal stress. Military tech, energy corridors, digital infrastructure, regional diplomacy. These are no longer separate tracks. They're parts of a larger strategic alignment, and that alignment is already influencing the global balance. When the war ended, Iran didn't just survive, it emerged stronger. That performance earned it quiet respect, even from its rivals. What we re-witnessing isn't the creation of a new superpower bloc. It's the rise of an alternative center of gravity. The West may still hold the financial reins and military muscle, but Iran, Russia, and China are showing that there are other ways to shape the world. And that's the new battlefield. Diplomacy, trade routes, energy politics, and strategic alignment. The question now is, will this axis last? Can it withstand external pressure and internal differences? Or will it fracture under the weight of competing ambitions? No one can say for sure, but one thing is clear. The post-war world is no longer just about who fires the next missile. Iran stood its ground in war. Now it's moving forward in alliance. This is Shadows of Strategy. Subscribe for more, because the real wars are fought not just with weapons, but with alliances.